My name is Guillermo del Toro, and I want to welcome you to the Metrograph live screenings. I am joined by Grear Patterson and Olmo Schnabel to discuss the beautiful movie Giants Being Lonely. Welcome, guys. Thank you for coming here to talk.
Well, thank you for being here.
It was first. I would like to say, because Grear may or may not know how I came in contact with the movie. I was having an afternoon with Olmo's dad, and he asked the worst thing you can ask for a filmmaker. Would you look at a movie that a friend of Olmo did and that he produced? And I was absolutely terrified, because that's a situation that you normally don't leave alive. You have to like dance really fast and say, well, it's all there, good luck with it. And then I started seeing the movie, and I was completely fascinated by it. Olmo knows this. I was blown away because you can trace certain influences. But it's a completely beautiful voice that comes in a very pristine way, in a very effortless way, deceivingly effortless. Because the movie is deceivingly, to the untrained eye, deceivingly lo-fi in a way, but then the rigorous construction of images has an incredible level of sense of light, composition, color, the rhythms, and it's a movie that asks you, either you surrender or not, that's your choice, but it asks you to live in it. And I started living in it, and we stayed until late. We talked about the final image, which you shot a little later, and we talked about all of that. I had very few pieces of advice to say. I was just fascinated by your movie. And that's why I'm here. I mean, I'm not here as a favor. I'm not here because I'm a trooper. I'm here because I love the movie. I really love the movie. And I thought, wow, out of the gate, first movie. And he has a voice that, we're like singers, right? Yeah. And if you hear a voice that moves you, you just want to hear more. So that's why I'm here. I wanted to say that. So my first question, which is the very basic one, the title made perfect sense, but I don't know why. So what can you tell me about it?
Yeah, so it comes from a Sandburg poem, like a Carl Sandburg. So he and Edward Steichen, they were close friends, and I was born in his house, and it basically just led me to this line. I used it for a show, and you just read the poem, and it talks about the circumstance of man and how we all are kind of at the edge of life, and how we all had kind of adversity and all these things, and then in the end it just says, but we were all giants being lonely. And I felt like how it was really this encompassing thing that just put us all together and made us really realize how connected we all are.
It is, and loneliness is not the purview of not the purview of just the young characters or the adults. You get a sense that everybody is sort of trapped in a labyrinth of sorts. Some have given up to looking for a solution and just become whatever circumstance made them. Others resist but don't have the tools. It's a very interesting film about loneliness. It reminded the thing that it reminded me of, in a strange way, because it has a very compassionate, very warm, but not a view of a young adult, coming, or a group of young adults. It reminded me a little of the young Coppola filmmakers, Gia and Sofia, in a way. Is sort of a counterpart to Virgin Suicides in a strange way for me, or obviously Elephant and all that stuff. But there is a compassion, but there is there's not a compulsion to explain. And I wanted to ask you both, if you had this clear from the start that it would be almost like a tonal poem rather than a plot driven movie.
Yeah, I think that was clear from the beginning for sure. We wanted it to be a really image-driven and emotionally driven story, and we wanted to refine it as much as possible so that the cues were just there enough so that you knew where you were going, but you could bring as many elements as you wanted to the story that were from your own life, your own experiences, where you could make it as relatable as possible, but as efficient as possible.
I also think at that moment in your life, when you're an adolescent, I don't think it's as easy to actually communicate what's going on in your life and to actually be someone who can, if you're vulnerable or you're going through a hard time, sometimes we don't want to talk about that and we want to pretend like everything's okay. So I think that Greer and we remembered being young and not really talking about the things that bothered us and kind of being, it was almost claustrophobic because it wasn't something we were comfortable doing. So I think that these characters exist also in the present, and that they have relationships from before, Bobby and Caroline, Adam, that, but the movie takes place in the present. So you come into these people's lives and then you come out of them. So like Greer said, we let people relate to the movie with their own experience, which leaves it more open-ended, but I think it's interesting that people can have their own relationship with the movie and everyone doesn't have the same experience.
No, I mean, I'm Mexican. I grew up in a completely different environment, but the feeling of being an adolescent can be permeated by adversity, by different social circumstances, by different social structures, blah, blah, blah. But the essence, what is fascinating for me is I think in the last 2 or 3 generations, which happened after World War II, after the baby boom, after these things, art and a sensation of almost creative melancholy, has permeated some of our generations. And if you survive childhood, which childhood is survival camp, if you make it out biologically semi-intact and you have a sensitive soul, you are by definition in your adolescence full of artistic emotion and understanding in a very, very instinctive way. So most adolescents have this melancholy feeling of the world that is absolutely right, by the way, but don't have the tools to express it. And I like that the movie makes a commitment about that. Is yes, there's sensitivity. Yes, there is fragility. But they're not quoting Lord Tennyson. They're not discussing art at a high level. They are just adolescents, which is a work of art. Adolescence is a work of art, living. So how much of that, Greer, was biographical, not in the anecdotal sense, but in that emotion that you were able to evoke?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty much 100% autobiographical in that respect.
So that you tried to capture that emotion.
Yeah. That
is aimless, not aimless, and yet very pure, right? I mean, they wonder. They're almost like litmus tests. They show the insincerity. By being there, they show the insincerity of the adult world. And but what I like is that the symbols of the teenage movie exist in the film. The prom, the baseball, the coach, the love affair, the rivalry for a girl, all these things are there, but they're there disarticulated. Did you make that as a conscious effort?
Well, yeah, I think I wanted to pay homage to all the movies that made me want to write and be interested and be so emotionally engaged and watch, and the films that I watched that made me feel like I wasn't alone, that made me feel like I participated in that type of event or that type of feeling. But then I also we wanted to make it true to the notion of what we were saying before. So we wanted, to see more of the guy's life, see more what it was like to wander and really exist, than what it meant to be practicing every single day.
And it's a threshold, right? I mean, how old are you?
I'm 33.
So you had 33 choices.
Yeah.
of what story to make, right? You would have told the story of you at age 4, at age 6. Why was this? Why was that moment between school and the world the important one for you?
Well, because I think when I was left to really be able to reflect with this event that had happened to me, which was have a kid that I went to school with actually have these events transpire, and I was the first one to know about it, and so it became a real emotional burden for me because I had to tell my science advisor and then tell all these other kids and basically deal with the dissemination of the information responsibly. And so I was really commiserating with this kid, and also feeling like how strange it is to know someone and have your understanding of what they were going through shift so quickly. And I got a job in London, and that's when I wrote the story, because I was alone in a house. So it was my first time ever being alone, really isolated. And so I was just I didn't know what to do, and I would just watch the whole film in my head over and over, and then I would just write it to relax.
The event that transpired, what was it?
He basically had a party, and he wanted to do it. I don't know if it was really like it happened in the story, but basically when he had this party, all of the kids were calling and complaining about a smell, and then a week later they realized that the parents had actually been there dead the whole time. But so I was also just making an effort to try to show a little bit of a human side of the whole aspect, and not make it explicitly about the event that happened to me, but just that notion itself, how difficult it is to get through it, and to have parents, and even if they're trying, you might not get what they're trying to do for you, and how this disconnect is part of the human condition.
Well, Olmo, I want to ask you when you became involved, but let me, before saying that, this makes so much sense. And visually, when I saw the movie, the final image was, for me, not shocking. It was actually, it made perfect sense for me. Yeah. It's the only way to end the movie, I thought. I have heard other people say, well, it comes out of nowhere. And you go, really? How can that be? And now that I hear this story, it moves me deeply, because this is quite literally, you want the audience to experience what you did, which is you lived with this guy for in the course of that time through these seemingly unimportant events. And that discovery was a punch in the face. And that you replicate that for the audience. But it's so beautiful to hear you talk about that. It's so great, man. It moves me deeply that you achieved it. Because the construction visually of the movie, you have things that, you have the image of the gazebo that I can think it reminds me of Magritte. You have the yellow purity of the jerseys against the black in the sky. There's a painterly, not surprisingly, a painterly sensibility. But that palette then evolves into the beautiful, terrible flashing of red and blue of the police that absorbs the entire frame. Is the real world, is not longer the cloistered adolescence, or even if you're exposed to bad parenting or this and that. Now this is garish and brutal, and the evolution of the soundtrack, the final minutes of the film going to this almost reverie, and I think these are tools that are not, it's very hard sometimes to explain this to people. These are choices you made, that you worked on, that you designed, that you pursued, and you organized in a composition. And because movies are just, they go in front of our eyes, they happen. The deliberate notion is hard to, if you're not a filmmaker, it's harder to see. This is very moving that you organize this construction, this composition, to end like that. It's so beautiful. Sorry, I'm back to the Q and the A.
No, you were instrumental in making sure that those heads were at the end of the movie, because it was a big question that Grear and I had. And in the script it was there, but then when we finished the movie, we didn't know if we needed it. But it was great when you saw it and you said that it was a must. And You know, it was really, we needed that push, and I think it vale la pena. You know, it was where it was. It was.
It was, and we discussed that they had to be perfect, which they are, by the way, because that's the hardest thing to execute is that. First of all, not to get technical, but a cut-off head looks fake in the real world. And for a fake cut-off head to look real in a movie is exceedingly hard. And the composition is beautiful, but it's not mannered. It's brutal, but it's not gory. Every time, what I try to explain to people that don't make films is that the director is a writer or a painter, and there's a specific adjective that exists through audiovisual means, or a specific shade of color that exists through audiovisual means. And if you waver, imperfection creates the wrong word, the wrong rhythm, the wrong, and the ending for me is perfect. So Olmo, when did you became involved? How did you guys meet? How early were you involved in the project?
Grear and I had been friends for a really long time. I've known him since I was 13 years old. And he was someone throughout my adolescence that I actually could be open with. So he was one of the few people I could communicate with. And when I was a kid, I would go over to his studio and we'd hang out. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but he was someone who would listen and who I felt comfortable with and who could give me good advice. And we always had this idea of collaborating and working together, but we never found it. And he was planning to make this movie and I'd heard about it, and I was living in Los Angeles, and I called him one day and I said, can you please send me the script? I'd love to read it. And then I read it and I immediately felt connected and I wanted to be a part of it, and it wasn't something I wanted to let pass by. So I called him the next day and I was impressed, and I said, so what do we need to do? And he said, well, come back to New York and we'll go to North Carolina together and I'll show you what I've been working on. And also my two closest friends since I was a child, Jack and Ben, were already attached to be in the movie. So the whole thing sounded fun and I didn't want to miss out. So it was May of 2018. And then by July of that same year, we were in North Carolina doing something together with a group of friends and really just going for something with I don't think we knew what we were getting ourselves into, but we were confident that we were there to do something together and we wanted the best. So it was really a really natural and intimate experience, and it was a blast. I mean, I hope that we can still have as much fun doing this in the future as we did this time around, because
sometimes you will, sometimes you won't.
Yeah, but we had a really great time, and it was amazing it was our first time doing something. So when it's your first time, you're just going for it. You don't really know whether you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. It's just intuition and instinct. And it was great to be able to have a family there and everyone having the same, everyone wanted to do the same thing. So I think that translates in the movie. And I think how intimate the environment was also translates in the movie.
In terms of the cinematographer and the sound design and music, can you talk to me about your collaborators in searching for this? What did you give them, a frame of reference, a latitude? Were you super specific? Who are they? Can you talk about them?
For the sound, we Nico Osborne, he did all of the sound with Will, and then we did all the post in with Hobo Audio with Steve. And then we kind of actually, in the end, I finished the last bit in Spain with a company that actually worked with you. And they were really, because I was always still very proud about your kind of interaction with the film. And so I was talking about, and yeah, so that we worked together, and I'm sorry that I'm spacing on their name, but Hunter Zimney, he was the best for the DP. He came in and we storyboarded.
How did you meet him?
Oh man. So basically we're all sitting around the table, like in 11th Street, at the office that Julian had provided for us, and we were just like, well, who's going to shoot this? Grear, are you going to film this? And I was like, yeah, but if I'm filming, then I'm going to be too distracted. And Olmo is always very supportive, so he's like, look, man, you tell me, but I know this kid Hunter. I went to school with him. He's great. He used to work for Sean Price Williams. Like it really, to me, makes a lot of sense. And so I met him, and it was just perfect. We already, all of our kind of references, our jams, when we would talk about like Fat City, these kind of things. It was just kind of, everything kind of gelled perfectly. And then we kind of went over concerns about cameras, because I had a red camera already that we had bought. And then he was worried about low light. So then we got a Gemini. And then we had these two cameras, and then we were convinced that if he was operating one and I was operating one, we couldn't really ever miss anything. And then we still, when there's really big things happening, we could still have an aux camera and divide. There were even days where we had to split crews, you know. So
you operated one and he operated one all the time?
Pretty much, I would say almost all the time. I would say about maybe 10 to 15% of the time I wouldn't.
Longer and shorter lens, right?
Yeah.
And did you give him a specific path and camera movement, or you let him discover?
I think different for each time. Actually, I have a lot of faith in Hunter. I would say we would really just be there looking, and if it fits, and you kind of you feel like they're going on it, and it either inspire you to kind of work on that same thing, imagining how they would work in the edit. You would have a little bit of that, a little bit of this, or you would not really like it, so you'd go to try to find a better alternative. So I would never try to tell him what to do. I would more try to find a solution, and then if not, kind of meet in the middle. But
what did the screenplay look like? Was it a screenplay that described the basic situation and then you workshopped it on the day, or was it a screenplay that was very precise in the beats on the scene?
The screenplay was actually pretty concise, but I would say we filmed and we added a lot, and then in the edit we ended up going almost all the way kind of back to the original. The structure was the same, but what we ended up doing is taking more out of it. So
that's funny you say that, yeah. Because there's several moments in, people think that editing is cutting, and editing is not cutting. In many ways, is the decision to hold the integrity of a shot for as long as it can sustain it. It's not about, let's cut to something else. It's, we're here. Let's be here. And the movie has that wisdom, has a lot of wisdom about holding, whether the camera is under the car, in the grass, and sustains that shot, or is a contemplative shot. There is no style of editing, but there is a wisdom and a cohesiveness to the editing that is very, very interesting for me to hear that you discarded a lot. Yeah, because it feels like that.
Ismail had this brilliant idea, which was we put the whole scene down on cards, and then as we would lay it down, we would look to see how true we were to the actual original thing, and then we would see it, go from these really dramatic changes to being more normal or normal within the original format of the configuration. And and it was beautiful, and they were all being held by stones, which I thought was a very accurate way to think about it, is that they're there and they have this potential amount of weight on them, but they could easily move in the wind, and not to hold it too tight. And we were also there in Mexico, which was almost a brilliant idea. So we were working, and I think pretty much the ideal setting to be as loose as one can be and really let it live, let it breathe. We let the shots breathe while we were on set, and we let the edit breathe, and we just hammered away, and we didn't stop until we thought it was perfect.
And in Mexico, life just comes at you from every angle. It's just, you get drunk in life. Yeah. And it's incredibly inspiring. And not in a corny way, in a very impactful, real way. It shakes you. It awakens you. You're not in a placid, perfect street with a clone shopping mall in the distance. Is a life force. And now that you finished, one of the things that strikes me about the way you talk about the experience is that everything was an art project. Everything on the shoot, the way you approached the layout, the decisions in editing, this seems to me to come from the nearness of the two of you, number one, but also your discipline as an artist, where you understand that the gesture in the creation, in the contemplation, in the exhibition, in the execution, everything is of a piece with the spirit of the art. Did that come from there?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. Even so much so that I remember for about 2 years, I collected just the bacon fat that I knew was going to be in the deep background, in the shot, in the trailer. I was like, this is going to make the perfect light. And every day I would pour the bacon and I would just be like, this is it. And it would just be sitting there. And like, I now even live in the same house as my family, and you can see its residual effect of having so many kids and living this kind of studio environment. Everyone would give me shit about having this bacon fat. And I was like, I know it's going to be there. It's going to be in the film, and it was perfect.
I just wanted to go back to the edit and Ismael de Diego, who I think did an amazing job. We knew he was going to edit the film before we made the movie. And Grear mentioned this last week when we were having a conversation with Roger Derling at Santa Barbara. And he's from Cuba, so having someone interact with this American story where there's baseball and the prom and all these things, but he didn't have that experience growing up. So I thought we both thought that it would be really interesting to see what what he'd bring to the table, how he would see the story. And as an outsider, putting that together, I think it made something different. I think there's a lot of movies, you can say it's derivative of a high school movie, but I think the language that the movie's in is completely different than another movie about high school. And I think that thanks to Ismael, I think he brought in tremendous amount of, I think his perspective really added a lot to the movie. And both Grear and I are forever grateful for the amount of time he put in. And he also just was open to doing things, that weren't only on the script, switching things around and just showing us things that we never even imagined were possible. So that was a great relationship, and we had the best time with him. I mean, every part of this was fun.
Hitchcock used to say that in order to be universal, you had to be specific. If the people trying to make a movie that will speak to everyone speaks to no one. When you speak only to the most intimate and most specific of your sensibilities, then it speaks to everyone. And I cannot imagine, and this is the area where I saw a kinship with the Gia and Sofia. The latitude of their narratives, their stories is so intimate. It's almost like a diary. That you feel that that's living not out of an imposture or a reminiscence, but is essential and intimate. And this movie has that. And I find it, I cannot but ask you, are you guys working on something else already? And what that may be, because this is such a specific thing that troubled you. And I think you kind of solved it through the movie. You made sense of the experience through the movie.
Well, right now we're finishing a movie that we finished filming before the pandemic that both Grear and I produced with our friend Alejandro Castro, who's in the movie. He's the guy he's in the pool with Caroline, and then he gets on the bed and he looks at her and he says, "Can I stay here?" She's like, "I just want to sleep alone." He's like, "All right, I'll see you at school." And he just finished a film that he made. He directed and acted in Madrid, and it's about toxic masculinity. And we're currently editing that right now. So that's actually the next project we have in line right now, which we're really excited about. It's pretty funky.
Are you having as much fun? You said, did you have as much fun?
Well, we have fun with him. Sadly, because of the pandemic, when they were doing the reshoots, we couldn't go back there, and they got lucky and finished filming the movie the day before this whole thing just unfolded in front of us, in front of everybody. But someone who's actually really funny in the movie is Enrique San Francisco, who just passed away, who is a Spanish actor, and I'm excited to show it to you. And it's different, but I think it also leaves an impression. He has his own voice.
Now, Grear, if you can tell me a little bit, the movie is finished, then all of a sudden you're in Venice, and what has the dialogue, the movie with the audience and you, of course, how has it been? How did you encounter the world and how did the movie encounter the world? What was that like?
It's been an amazing experience, and we've all been in it so often together. In Venice, we were always there. We were able to kind of experience the red carpet, which is very much a first thing. Olmo had been to these festivals with the limelight, all these things. But then the reception was incredible. In Venice, everyone was giving us a real, where you hear about the standing ovation, you don't even really think that that's a thing, and it really happens. People come up to you. When we were in a smaller situation in Portugal, it was more intimate. They were kind of discussing kind of the ending, and I was able to talk about the ending, and I'm glad that you also had the same opinion, and it was great. That's what was so amazing, is that there was older people and younger people, and everyone connected with this story and the state of youth. So I thought that it went, I think now it's really the time. I won't really know, because it was always in festival settings, so the people that are there are generally film enthusiasts.
And you found that anywhere you went, there was commonalities. Yeah. Like you said about Roger in Cuba, or me in Mexico, or Portugal. Everybody identified that essential mystery of adolescence, huh?
Yeah. Definitely.
What's interesting, as such an American movie, people can connect with it. And it was interesting that the movie actually had very much a life until Santa Barbara. I mean, I guess Alabama also in the summer, but the movie hadn't been shown in the United States. So we were only showing the movie in Europe, and people are dealing with this baseball. And before they even see the movie, they're saying, I don't really like baseball. I don't really know anything about it. And then people are watching, and they realize that's just the backdrop of the movie. There's a lot more to it, and it's more universal than it may seem. You can't judge a book by its cover.
Well, what is beautiful about the movie, and the reason I think is the purity of the voice, is the reasons why somebody may reject it are the exact same reasons why somebody will love it to death. And now you're on the threshold of having a new experience when it goes, when you go through this screening, which is virtual, when more people have access to it digitally, and it can circulate the way a song circulates. For me, the movie has that quality. It has the quality of a song. It has the quality of something that you play and immerse in. That's, in my opinion, all cinema aspires to be music. And when a piece of film achieves that in any way, is wonderful. So I want to thank you, and hopefully when we're watching your next movie, we'll be together somewhere, and we will continue this conversation. Thank you, everyone, and go watch the movie.
Thank you, Guillermo. It means a lot for you to have you here. We really appreciate this.